Dorus Didi Lekganyane, a 32-year-old scientist, was allegedly killed in a domestic violence incident at her Bramley home in Johannesburg just a few days ago. A month prior, she was recognized as a leading voice for climate change and environment in South Africa. Now, she has sadly become a statistic of GBVF, and that is one of many cases in South Africa awaiting justice in a nation where GBVF statistics rank as one of the highest in the world each year. And beyond the scourge and statistics, we're going to be exploring what is urgently needed under this next administration, under the Government of National Unity, perhaps to tackle the scourge and also promote a safer society at large. Adv Brenda Madumise Pajibo, Wise4Afrika Director, weighs in further for that conversation. Advocate Brenda, good morning, and thank you for your time with the SABC at this hour.
Good morning, Lizelle, and good morning to the viewers this cold morning.
Oh, this very cold morning. And I wish we could be speaking, about happier issues or warmer issues. But obviously, yet again, we can see, the effects of the scourge of GBV in our country. Perhaps before isolating some of the incidences, I really just wanted to look at the expectations for the 7th administration, following the campaigning, following the promises and manifestos, and obviously the formation of the Government of National Unity. From your vantage point, is there more hope?
Sometimes people say to you, must continue to be optimistic, right? So I'm gonna start with that and say I'm still optimistic that there might be some glimmer of hope with this new 7th administration. But, and I'm gonna say a huge but, history has taught us that what we had on Thursday in the President's speech is the same old, right? And not followed up by action. And if you look at that speech and the previous speeches and the actions of various departments and ministries under his watch and guidance, not much happened, right? The fact that what led to some action being taken by this government in 2018 was due to the sheer bravery and determination of women in this country who decided to say, we cannot continue to look the other way as if we are ostriches hiding our faces in the sand. This gendered violence is a reality for South Africa, and it requires urgent attention. So maybe even the words that we use are not landing with politicians, are not landing with society. And so when we use words like we're going to, and if you look at the President's speech, he said we are going to continue to implement the National Strategic Plan. But what the President has not told the country is that that National Strategic Plan on gender-based violence has not been funded. So how are you going to implement it when you have not put resources towards it to ensure that it does what it was supposed to do, outlined in that plan? And that's a challenge for this country. When I look at the comments coming from the Twitter feed that you have just shared with the viewers, is that people are tired of words. They're tired of being told. They want to see action. So when we design plans like the 2030 National Development Plan that tells us the roadmap of what kind of a country we want to live in, is everything that we have done leading to 2030 has not been a reality.
I actually want to pick up on that point because, you raised questions about funding, the how coming to the fore, because timeline adherence concerning the National Strategic and the plans, the adoption of the GBVF bill, the council, ensuring that there is a measure, or we measure the success of that to also foster social cohesion and create a safer society at large. From your vantage point, what needs to urgently then happen?
So, it's to institutionalize that National Strategic Plan, institutionalize it from at national level, at provincial level, at local government, in all the institutions, including private sector, right? If you ask anyone, if you have to bring the CEOs of this country in a debate and ask them about the contents of that National Strategic Plan, I can assure you that no one would articulate because they have not seen it or read it. So you need to institutionalize it. By the time you draw up your plans, your annual performance plans as a department, you have centered that National Strategic Plan in your APP development and execution. And then you work on fast-tracking the implementation of that National Strategic Plan. Our execution is poor, is below par. And what this 7th administration should be focusing on is how they enhance the execution plans that they have in place. How are they going to fast-track implementation of these plans? Because as we said earlier, we are tired of hearing the same old, right?
Yes.
We want to see action and we want to see things change. So when we see things starting to change, we then can tell you as leaders of society whether you are making a change or not.
Because Police Minister Senzo Mchunu acknowledged the grave concern and also promised to address, some of the needs. I wonder if we could speak to that, because early on you spoke about the incorrect use of language, the terminology that's used, the negative attitudes that continue to exist. But ultimately, how, as ordinary citizens, can we also shift norms, change that violent behavior that pervades our society at large?
Oh God, we have to start everywhere. I mean, and this is the issue for me, Lizelle, that if we continue to look at gender-based violence and gendered violence in isolation from everything else that we do, we're going to continue to have the kinds of challenges and the levels of violence perpetrated against women, non-binary, non-gender conforming individuals and LGBTQI communities in high numbers, because we tend to place it as a women's problem, right? Not a societal problem, right? So once we take that posture that it's a woman's problem, and in fact, when it gets raised, people get irritated, or in fact, they don't want to hear it for reasons known to them. It's what is causing us the problems that we have. We need to be confronted at all levels of this society. When it happens in the trade union movement, when women in the trade union are sexually harassed in the trade union by leaders, you don't hide it. You go and address it as swiftly as we have said. When it happens in the church, you need all of that. And I think for me, fundamentally, is can we have individuals who claim to have character, right? Because we all claim to have character. But once you are accused of that you don't waste our time and hiding behind a number of excuses that the woman was trying to destroy your career by saying that you have sexually harassed them. Can you own up if you believe that you have wronged an individual? Because what we have done over the years and systematically is that we have made women to look like they're crazy when they talk about their exploitation and their abuse at the hands of many perpetrators, right?
Yeah.
And when you talk to women and you want to find out what justice looks like for them, they will tell you justice for them is an individual facing that individual and that individual saying, I'm sorry, right? Because remember, when you say this, no one wants to believe you. So you look at, if you don't have the evidence to show, no one is going to believe you that this individual who's supposed to be powerful, who's supposed to be important, could have done something like this to you.
Advocate Brenda, let me just quickly come in there, just on the back of the lack of justice issues that you're alluding to for survivors and victims at large. Very quickly, the role of education, but the role of the media, society at large, in changing mindsets and really, reflecting what is necessary at this point to help foster that change.
So I think maybe for the SABC, I think you need to take a hard decision as the SABC. The media plays a key role in transmitting the message, and in the process of transmitting the message is educating. And I think maybe the SABC needs to look at a program that is entirely focused on how we change mindset and norms and attitudes in how we attend and address gender-based violence. And I think it's something that should be done, and have a 30-minute slot, whether it's yourselves, your competitors, and everybody else, right? Because and radio is a big part of that, where these conversations must continue. They should not continue because we just heard of the killing of a woman or the rape of a woman. It must be a daily thing that we do, right? When we said as the hashtag, the total shutdown, that the 16 days of no violence against women must be 365. We mean that. It can't happen when there is an outcry because something has happened, right? It has to be a daily thing that we do. So your role as the media is key, is crucial, and we need to look into that. Society will continue to advocate for that. And this national dialogue that is being spoken about, maybe that's where we need to position and center gender equality and ensure that we rid this society of gendered violence.
Well, it seems like the calls for that national dialogue ensues. Thank you for your time at this hour and for weighing in. We'll leave the conversation there. Perhaps also mulling over what has been echoed, but looking at how there are now more questions and answers given some of the plans that have been put in place, but really where to from here as questions about implementation once again comes to the fore. Advocate Brenda Madumise Pajibo, Wise4Afrika Director, exploring what is urgently needed under this next administration, under the Government of National Unity, to tackle the scourge of GBVF and promote a safer South Africa. Thank you to her for joining us at this hour.